You remember my question? Okay, it's gone. Come back.
Okay.
Sit down, it's right.
When I was asking you what you thought of day to day, some survivors have talked about
Food.
dreaming of what they were going to eat after the war, or what they were going to do, or where they were going to go.
Very good, smart girl. You're fortunate. Well, as I said earlier, unfortunately the tape did not work, so we're going to do all over again. Our mechanics. Good thing we have some good cold in the finger left. Bruce, Gawi. Yeah, got cold in the finger left.
You sure you're Jewish, bro?
Yeah. Oh, they are. Anyhow, our dream, I'm sure most of the people that lived to survive in camp were, if we could only get a loaf of bread all to yourself and have food anytime you want. Not fancy cakes, not fancy food, not fish, not only a piece of bread. Bread. Imagine. Can you imagine? You cannot comprehend, Kindle. You never will, and I hope you never have the need. Only to have bread. Period. This was our wish. And to go on about the day we were liberated.
Mm-hmm.
As I said earlier, as the Russians were coming closer into Poland to open up the second front, we didn't know what that second front is, but now I know what that second front is. They were coming closer in the interior of Poland. The Germans continuously tried to evacuate the Jews deep into Germany. And a week or so earlier, they managed to take away another transport deep into Germany. Fortunately, I was not among them. But the very day that we were liberated, which was January 16, 1945, it was a Wednesday morning. Again, we were all called out in the yard, with a big courtyard, and picked out certain people, numbers. I don't know how I happened to fall in. And this time I fell in the numbers that were called out. The men were separated and the women were separated. All my four sisters lived in the same barrack, and I was marched into a huge, the railroad cars, cattle cars were already waiting for us. We were marched into a big, huge warehouse. And same thing they did with the women. When they had a roll call, when they called out Riva's name, and stepped forward instead of Riva, hoping that Riva won't survive, that at least one of them will survive. So as it turned out, and Hanka and Eda were also called out and sent in the big, huge warehouse where the German will load us on the railroad cars and take us in deeper into the interior of Germany.
Did they call out names or numbers?
They call it numbers or name. I don't recall exactly, but I know they call it. No, we didn't have. Yeah, we had numbers.
Do you remember what your number was?
No, there couldn't be numbers. I had to call the number. I really don't know for sure. If they called the number, then Anne could not step forward for Riva. So they must have called names. Or maybe they just picked. No, they couldn't pick. They had to, otherwise she stepped forward. And we were, and the Germans were still soldiers. There were still soldiers there with guns, rifles, marched us into the big, huge warehouse. And I came into the warehouse and I saw a huge warehouse of cement, bags of cement. And I told Eda immediately, Eda, we're not going to go from here. We're going to hide. And I quick went, start making a big, huge hole, moved out the cement, and we're going to take some blankets We were going to hide here because I felt, I knew that the day of liberation is coming. Meaning the liberation was that the Germans, that the Russians are coming, and they were going to be liberated. And so as we were, large group, maybe a few hundred people sitting there waiting, in that warehouse. And the German used to come in, a German soldiers come in from time to time and tease us. And then all of a sudden, hours went by, the soldier did not come in. So one person probably opened up the gate, and there was no soldier. And pretty soon, the civilian Germans, the masters, what they call a master, he was the foreman of the factory, ordered us to go back into the camp, and they were only still waiting. They were still there with rifles in their hand, but they ordered us to go back into camp. And within hours, they too ran away. And the Russians were still bombing the city. As a matter of fact, right next door to us, there was a paper factory there, and the paper factory was burning. And we were sitting outside and we saw the planes flying overhead, and we didn't hide, Well, hoping they're going to put a bomb, to throw a bomb in our camp, because we were not quite sure that this is the day. But anyhow, as soon as it got dark, we saw the Germans were gone. We were free. So the first thing we did, we opened up the camp gates, and we ran where the Germans were living. The guy in charge of the camp, his name was Bartenschlager. I remember that the day I died. And we set his house on fire. And I got a hold of his head, marched him with the thing, proud. And then we went, what do you call it, when they do when they wrap in the riots, when they go in a warehouse.
To loot?
Loot, yeah, I remember. They were looting. We went to loot a warehouse of food. And wouldn't you know, what did I pick up? A can of honey. Real close and solid honey. She's in it the second time already. And I gripped it, put the honey now. But wait a minute, I was 14 years old. Oh, by the way, this time too, I want to tell you the fact about Schindler's List. I'm sure all of you are going to see the Schindler's List. If you didn't see it, you should see it. And if you remember the scene there, where a little boy, more or less the age as I was then, hid in a toilet. He jumped in. Well, we had exactly the same toilet in our camp. Exactly, you heard it the second time already. Exactly the same toilet. And another boy, a friend of mine, same age, we're going to do it. We talked about it, that we're going to do exactly the same thing. But we didn't go through that thing because we didn't have a chance, because we were marched out. But I was going to do that very, very thing.
Do you remember this friend's name?
No, I don't remember. It could have been Aschemia, the one that I eventually ended up in Israel, and I don't know if it was him or not. Another friend of mine, maybe it was. I don't remember exactly, but another friend of mine, same age, we were going to do that very thing that you saw on Schindler's List.
One of your sisters also wondered whatever happened to that hat.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So we went in there, and I brought a big 5-gallon can, of honey, and I came back in camp, and I handed it over to my sisters. And as night fell, it was Wednesday and Thursday morning, early Thursday morning, Mandel, my sister Mandel, and she had a boyfriend by the name of Simcha. He was from a town not far from Demden, Rika. And looking back, it was so silly on our part. I don't know where our Seichel was. We were all through the camp, we were all together, all the time. We picked ourselves up, early in the morning, to our back door. He got a hold of a bike with some bags on the back, and we walked out of the camp on our own. Walking away, run away from the camp, and this is a story by itself where we went through hell. Walking from Częstochow on the way to Demblin.
And this was the middle of winter.
Middle of winter, this was already January. I still had the same clothes that my sister and sewed for me for my blanket, and they were rubbing on my foot. But of course my feet were rough, and with the wooden shoes. And we walked and we walked and we walked for miles. And we saw a lot of German soldiers, dead soldiers. We saw, as we walked by, we saw a tank ran over a German soldier. And we saw some also German soldiers on fire. And the first night as night fell, we went into a farm and we asked to sleep over there. And they let us stay over. But we left our other three sisters. I'm angry now thinking what a stupid thing we did. But fortunately we got together again. So, but this is still a horrible story I have to tell you. As we were walking, Russian soldiers came and they were chasing my sister Mandel. I'm sure the intent was to rape her. It was so fortunate. They were drunk, they didn't catch her. And here, her boyfriend and myself were. Then we hitchhiked a ride with Russian soldiers, moving away from the front, going towards Demlin. I don't know how we knew when we were reading a map, but we walked, we're walking. We're going this truck, it was a closed truck, remember, a van. And there was a big oven hooked in the corner there. And wouldn't you know it, they were driving. All of a sudden, we heard a bump, and it stopped, the truck stopped. When we walked out of this truck, the truck fell in an anti-tank bunker. It was cut a hole in the middle of the road like against tank. And the truck fell in just like this. I don't remember if the truck driver got killed or not, but we had to climb out from a door. Luckily, if the oven would tore loose, it would have squeezed us. So my sister Mandel and myself, evidently at that time he didn't have the bike no more. He got rid of the bike. And probably on the way I probably lost the head too at that time. We climb out there and we're walking and walking and walking. Finally one evening we got in, it was a town, we got in a house, in a building, and we asked to stay overnight. My sister Mandel spoke pretty good Polish at that time yet. And we told them they were Polish, and they let us sleep there on a bunk on a stool or slept. And I to this day, I spoke Yiddish. I spoke in my sleep. So when we got up in the morning, the woman says to us, I don't know, you guys, you were speaking Yiddish, it's po-żydowsku, You guys, this guy, this boy that spoke Jewish, are you Jews? So my sister Mandel said, no, he spoke German, we were in this, And the first thing in the morning, we just could get out of that house, anti-Semite there yet. And as we were walking towards Demblin, and I think in a town of Pillow, we went in the railroad station. This was already far away already, deeper where the German, where the Russian already occupied it 6 months, because Demblin was liberated. Demblin was liberated in 44, summer 44. As soon as they evacuated us, Demblin was liberated. And they stopped. The Russian army stopped. After the liberating, the Russian army stopped and they didn't continue. This way we had to wait 6 more months. Anyhow, we came to this station and there was a lot of people there. And we had a kind of a password among Jews right away. If you wanted to know whether the next guy is a Jew, we used to say, Amcho. It's a Hebrew word. Little did I know it then. I knew it's Amcho. It's a Hebrew word, Amcha. You're for my nation. Amcho. So obviously only Jews knew that. And as soon as Amcho, that's how they knew the Jews. So that's how we passed, actually we said that a Goy, Amcho, he wouldn't know, but every Jew knew what Amcho means, And sure enough, in that camp, in that railway station, we saw some other people, and we asked, Amcho? And he said, yeah. So we started talking about it, so we ran into that man, and he says, he's Jewish, where you from? Where you come from? So we started telling the story. We told him the story that we were just liberated, and we were from here, and we were from Demblin. So, wouldn't you know, this young man said, wait a minute, you from Demblin? I had relatives in Demblin. Who are your relatives? My cousin. He was my mother's cousin.
Oh.
Would you know him?
What was his name?
Hoyim Stern. He was my mother's cousin. When we mentioned my mother, he didn't know, but he knew Shiyusher, because Shiyusher was the same age as him. So he told me Shiyusher Rokerswald so it was my mother's first cousin.
Wow.
In the railway
And that was
station.
the first time you met him?
First time I met him, So he got a hold of us with children, right? And he had a wife. He survived as a partisan in the forest. So he settled in Lublin, and he was already handling, making money. So his wife lived in Lublin. So we took the train, Mandel, myself, and the Simcha, and we went to Lublin. And when we came to Lublin, Lublin was already liberated 6 months. It was the same time as Demblin was liberated. And they had an orphanage home there. And his wife's nephew, Pinchas, was in that orphanage home also. So I was sent to that orphanage home. I went with the Pinchas showed me where. Any survivor child, all you had to do is go there, and they took you in with open arms.
And how old were you at this time?
15 years old. That was in January. Right away, January. Within a week, it took us or so. And we came in this orphanage home. And I remember, so this orphanage home was run by a woman from Russia, Jewish woman, but they were communists, really. They really were. But we were taken in there, showered, shaved up our hair, give our new clothes. I have one of the pictures from there, one of the small. And then subsequently, so now we're in Lublin already. My sister Mandel stayed with his wife. And then subsequently she moved away. She moved back to the township also where her husband, her boyfriend was come from. And I remained there. Subsequently, Riva and Anne and Edda also left the camp on the way to Demblin by foot. And as they were walking toward Demblin, the Russians still were bombing Częstochow. And on the way, I'm sure it's the story, they had told the same story too. They were bombing, and they would throw a bomb, and a girl got killed. Jewish girl, they were just liberated from camp, got killed right next to my sister Anne, and Anne was wounded too. She had a shrapnel in her head and her back to this very day. They went to Demblin. I never went to Demblin. And they stayed in Demblin a little while. Then subsequently they came to join us in Lublin.
Did you have any idea what happened to your mother or Masha at that point?
No, we're still waiting till this very day after that. No.
We knew
already that they were taken away. There was a Treblinka. They were gas
So at that point you had heard stories?
we knew,
from relatives?
that the people were taken away, and there was ovens. At that time we knew already. And so Edda and Riva and Anne came to Lublin, And Edda and Riva immediately came also into this orphanage home. This was winter of 45. And while we were there,
It's starting to make that
It's
noise
okay, we're
again.
listening.
Okay, sorry.
Come on.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, winter of
we
45.
were, yeah, in winter 45, we joined the camp. They started teaching us. We had food, we had clothing, you know, and it was an orphanage home. Then while we were there, evidently there was some clandestine organizations, Jewish organizations, tried to organize people to go to Israel, to form Zionist organizations. So some older boys than we were evidently knew about that organization, and they clandestinely went to have meetings. And one time, myself and another boy followed those other big boys, the older boys, to that meeting. We confronted them. Okay? So we found out about that organization. Everybody's wish, when as soon as we were liberated from concentration camp, was to go to Israel. None of us wanted to remain in Poland. It had nothing to do with it. So we followed those boys and we confronted them, and we found out there was a clandestine organization of young children organization to recruit children to eventually take him to go to Israel. And I was indoctrinated, you know, was taken into this organization, and they organized a group of people, smugglers, evidently the mother thing, and they brought us to they brought them to Germany, and then from Germany.
Did the organization have a name?
It was a Zionist organization, but as it turned out, it was really from Shomer Tzayir. It was a Zionist organization. And we left that orphanage home, and they organized us. And first we went to another city in Poland, closer to the German border. And we're in another camp, also Chorzów, where Auntie Edda was there also. And we came in a town, Katowice. And there was a day, go ahead.
That's the name for
Making a lot of noise.
It's making
We were
noise.
in a town, Katowice, there was a pogrom. Even after the war, mind you, after the war, they were still killing the Jews there in Katowice. But then they organized the group in Auschwitz, but this is the Auschwitz term. We took this train to go to Germany. It was a whole several carloads of people, of young men. First they brought us to Prague, Czechoslovakia, and then they were going to bring us to Germany. So on the way, they told us there was some Russian already. The Russians were occupied Czechoslovakia and Poland. So on the way to cross the German border and the trains, they told us not to speak Polish. We're supposed to be Greek Jews. They're going back to Greece. So it was a few words in Hebrew, you know. Once you know, they caught us at the border and they didn't let us go through. Okay, the Russian, and they put up the railroad, the whole car on a sideline there at the track, and they kept us. My sisters and I would panic right away, so we decided to run away.
Which sisters were you with at this
Edda.
time?
I was Edda. Riva was left behind. Riva was left behind in that orphanage home. Again, we left behind Riva. And Edda and I were on And as a matter of fact, Easy, and this is my buddy Easy.
Oh, really?
And we were on this train, and we decided, Ed and I decided to run away. We was afraid we got caught by the Russian again. And we were running back into the trail in Czechoslovakia, in Czech police quarters. And the quarters says, "What are you guys doing?" And of course we didn't know Czech, so a guy was saying, "Vodka tea," means where you from? Where you from? So we thought, that he said whether we have vodka. So I told him, I said, "Panie, my nie mamy vodki. I said, "Sir," said, "we don't have vodka." He said, he said, vodka tea. And they took us to a police station, but they let us go, and we went to Prague, the city of Prague. We get it again, and again was the organization, designers organization, we get it again, and we tried again. A few weeks later, we tried again, and this time, probably the Schmier or whoever they did there, we didn't know. This time we went through the border into Germany. Okay?
What stop it?
Stop it.
Yeah.
Test it. You don't want to risk this again. Test it.
Okay, this time we managed to get into Germany, and I remember they put us on big trucks, and they brought us in a bunch of same guys, from again the same Zionist organization. And evidently they were all agents of the Israeli from the Israeli government to gather to gather the children of whoever was left to survive. And they brought us to the camp Landsberg. We were in a camp in Landsberg. And only myself and Etta. And from there, from Landsberg, we made arrangements with a woman to go to pick up Riva, bring Riva to us. Yeah, children. Amazing. And from Landsberg, again, it was Jewish organizations from the Israeli Sochnut that took us to a town in Germany, Santotilia. They probably heard that name. Santotilia was really a place where the recreation. It was a hospital. Was guarded by American soldiers, but the German officer had to work there. And we were there sent there to recuperate. It was a sanatorium, that's what it was. And we lived so good there. Oh, we had such a great time. At that time, Riva joined us already, and Eda, myself, and all the buddies that I have now, that Easy now.
What are their names?
Easy, and many more who knows the others.
Was
I will remember
there?
two, huh?
Pavel?
No. That was much later. Believe it or not, now listen to that. This was in 1945. November of 45. They came to me at that time and said, "What would you like to be?" Would you know that what I said at that time? That I want to be a sailor in the Israeli Navy. Little did I know that it's going to turn out to be this way. That I'm going to end up being one of the first sailors in the Israeli Navy. But at the age 15 and a half, 16, I said I would like to be a sailor in the Israeli Navy. So there in St. Otilia, we were there a few months till we recouped, and at that time, a matter of fact, Ben Gurion came to us to visit us. Ben Gurion, yeah. And from there, the group of people were sent to Feldafing, a DP camp, but we were not right in the camp, we were outside the camp when a barrack is organized as a group, as a kibbutz. As a matter of fact, our kibbutz was named Mapilim, in Feldafing. This was already, it's 45, November, December, January. and there was a Shomer kibbutz, and we're structured already. It was like an orphanage from a school, but it was in intention again to go to Israel. And early in '46, the first group was chosen to go to Israel illegally. There was a group of 15 people, and Easy Schleicher was one of the group, one of the fellas that went early in '46 through Italy, through the thing, went to Israel illegally. Subsequently, at that time already, Anne came joined us in Germany, Mandel joined us in Germany, and they lived in Neufreimann, a suburb of Munich. So I quit the kibbutz, went to live with Mandel and Anne, and they were married already. They did not have children. They were married. I went to join that in Neufreimann, and I went to school there. And from there, as I said earlier, all our desires, every one of us, at least my sisters and myself, our wishes were to go to Israel. Obviously, Israel, little did I know the Israel gates were closed, the British were there and we couldn't come to Israel. But as I was going to school during the day, the Jewish organization arranged that 1,000 children from Germany, from the DP camps, could immigrate to Israel legally. And I was chosen, I was fortunate among the 1,000 children to be permitted to go to Israel, come to Israel legally. And I was so happy, I was thrilled, and I was, and my sisters didn't give a second thought. Sure, go, because we're coming, And I remember the day that they took us to a camp that we gathered there, and they put us on a train. And from Munich, I probably didn't have maybe two pieces of clothing there. From Munich, we went by train to Marseille, France. And I had that horrible, horrible experience. I was sick. I was terrible, constipated. I was absolutely terrible sick. And I thought I'm going to die from constipation. I literally passed through stones, scratched out by hand. That's how sick I was. I was all alone, obviously with a lot of other Jewish people. From there, with American big huge trucks, we brought to a ship in Marseille, and we boarded that ship on the way to Israel. From Marseille, we stopped in Tunis. Little did we know that in Tunis we picked up the Mufti of Jerusalem. And he was on our ship. And there were 1,000 Jewish children who all slept on the deck, Then we stopped in Alexandria, Egypt. And from Alexandria, Egypt, we sailed in. And the name of the ship, as I said, was Champollion. Remember this? And by the way, I left Germany April 9th of 1946. I arrived to Israel April 27th, don't remember my birthday, but 1946 to Tel Aviv. So we came to Haifa, we unloaded, and the British were still there yet, but remember now, I came legally. They took us into a camp, waiting camp. The name of the camp was Atlit. Until this very day, it's still there. It's next by Haifa. It was a military. It was a camp that the British were still quarantined in that camp. Couldn't get out until we were issued passport cards, identity cards, and then they were kind of sorted out, So while we were in that camp for a week or two, in that Atlit camp, we were guarded. We couldn't go out. Guarded by British police. soldiers. First time we saw grapefruit, we didn't know what they were, so we used it as a ball to play with it. Yeah, we didn't know. First time we saw grapefruit, so we used it as a ball to kick around and play football with it. Then a group of 15 people, that's the truth. Then a group of 15 people, 15 youths, 15 teenagers, were taken out from the camp. I suppose were processed by the British. You know, you. And were taken to, one night, from Haifa, from the cliff, into Tel Aviv. And I have a picture that, at night we had to send up a tent. I have the picture. And we stayed, this picture, from that on, I have pictures already from this era. We stayed that night in Tel Aviv. The following morning, by bus, that took us to kibbutz Kfar Menachem. Myself and 15 other children. But I only knew one guy, that Chemya, that he was in camp together, and he go to Israel together, and went to kibbutz together. He just recently, a year ago, maybe he died. So, from there we came to kibbutz Kfar Menachem. As it turned out, the kibbutz was a Shomer HaTzayir kibbutz. The kibbutz was a relatively new kibbutz. At that time, it was only 5 or 6 years old, the kibbutz. It was a combination of German Jews, American Jews, and Israelis. And there, right, we got a set of clothing, shorts, pants, shirts, and we were set up in like a barrack, and two children to a room. And while we were in kibbutz, we were going half day. Now, mind you, when I came out of camp, I was literally illiterate. Because if you recall, I only went to the 3rd grade. But when we came to the kibbutz, the problem was that we were working a half a day, and we went to school a half a day. We switched off one group in the morning, one group in the evening. And within the 2 years, we went to equivalent of a high school education. My favorite subject was geography there too, always liked geography. And this is more or less the basic education that I got, and I got by all right. Obviously everything in Hebrew, we didn't learn English, everything was in Hebrew. And when I came to Israel, maybe I knew 4 or 5 words. It's making noise like that. 4 or 5 words of Hebrew, but within a relatively short time, I spoke perfect. I spoke Hebrew just like any other Israeli. So we had a choice. We had a choice of any work that we choose to go to, because the kibbutz had all kind of work they had. Believe it or not, as a matter of fact, when I left Germany, and I told my sister, Anne, you're going to see me in Israel with a shovel in my hand and building the country. So that's asking me. She asked and I sent her some pictures with it. So when I came there and they asked me what I wanted to do, so I said, I want to go work construction. And I went to work construction. I worked very, very hard. I worked mixing mud, it was called plasters, I worked very hard, but I enjoyed it. In addition, while I was working my regular job a half a day, Saturdays, Sundays, when we had to harvest the hay or tomatoes or peaches, we worked all the time, and we gladly did it. And we had a relatively good, happy, group of people, girls and boys. I had a nice girl that I loved her, but she didn't love me much when I read that. Yeah, and we worked agriculture, we worked many things, but primarily my job assignment was in construction, plastering. Then at age 17, in 1947, right away we trained to defend the country, without guns, but with sticks like they could do with the Haganah. In 1947, our group had officially joined the Haganah. The Haganah was an underground organization, you know. And I remember one early morning, always remember the day, with a truck, we drove down further south to kibbutz Negba. And there, early in the morning, one morning, at that time we took out rifles and they made it like a tent, and we were sworn into the Haganah. Everybody had to swear allegiance, you know, the Haganah. And there in the kibbutz, and then in the evening, we went back to our kibbutz and we were officially members of the Haganah at 17. And we were training on Sundays, you know, we're training with rifles and how do we use a rifle and military thing, you know, beside the work, beside the school, we had to learn the thing too. And then late in 47, if you know a little bit history, you know, it was known as the Moraod broke out. The Arabs started attacking, because I read it was a political thing that the UN was going to divide Palestine at the time. So the Arabs started attacking different Jewish communities, including the kibbutz where we were in Kram Nachem. We were surrounded by 5 Arab farms. We were right in the middle from 5 Arab farms that we were in there. Unfortunately, all the Arabs ran away. They ran away. Yeah. So we were trained in military tactics. Now, one incident, I'm sure you remember. If you don't remember, you should learn about you heard of the ship Exodus? One early morning, evidently the ship Exodus came in, so they tried to go down south to try to land mix in with the population. So one early morning, we awakened, load up on trucks, and they took us someplace. We didn't know where. As it turned out, the idea was to bring us in and mix us up with the population, so the British wouldn't know who they were, you know. But evidently, because we were legally, I still have the passport, the identification from Palestine. So at that time, the British set up already roadblocks, and we couldn't get through. So this is my association with the Exodus, you know, that time the ship, and we had to come back. Meanwhile, the 2 years went up, and the war broke out, you know, the Moraod, and at that time, I had volunteered to go into the army. At that time, we didn't have an army yet, because the British were still there yet, and 15 of us went to form a new kibbutz. 15 of us went into the volunteers. We went into the army, into the service. But it was not an official army yet. And I remember leaving the kibbutz and going to Haifa, and again having trained. Matter of fact, we went to a kibbutz Gan Shmuel, and I have some pictures there too of us, you know, with a Sten,
Rifle?
no, as a machine gun, you know, automatic machine gun, made by Israelis. We made it with hand grenades. I have that picture. And there too, we were trained in military tactics already. And from the Gan Shmuel, kibbutz Gan Shmuel, that we were training for military tactics, you know, shooting and maneuvers. We were taken to Haifa, and at that time the British were ready to leave Haifa. And we were there, a group of us, to kibbutz Shemet. And from there they gave us rifles. We had Czech rifles. The Czech, by that time, they were cooperating with us in Russia too. And we issued Czech rifles. And as the British left the port of Haifa, I was one of the group of people that marched in, and we took over the port of Haifa from the British. This was in early 48. Yeah. And so there too we have an incident that I always remember. So again, we were Palmach, we were from the Haganah, you know, we were the nucleus of the Israeli army that is now. So if if you ever were in Haifa, you know the port. They had some the gates, you know, the lighthouse where the entrance into the port is. You know, there's a light. You know, yeah.
The point.
Now the point, but now it's of course extended. At that time, it was not that far. So I was assigned another two group of people. As a matter of fact, girls too were in the service with us at that time. We were assigned at one point on the right-hand side as you look out to the ocean. In another group there. And they forgot about that. Of course, we didn't have the communication, we didn't have the radio, we didn't have the telephone. Go out there, watch, because to see any suspicious boat come in there, so we should, whole day go by, nobody knows that. We didn't have no water, we didn't have no food, we didn't have nothing, we didn't have no, walkie-talkies like that, not sophisticated. I said, what do you do here, So they told us that if we see any suspicious boat going there, so sure enough, a boat went by there, I shot at them. Oh, I shot at not at them, but So they both quick went out to the headquarters and said, those guys said they're shooting at us. So, but the quicker was to get us. That's the only way we can get on. That's how they got our attention. So they come back, they pick us up, and they bring us out to headquarters. They say, why did you shoot at them? I said, well, they look suspicious. So they took away my rifle from me, and they put my other buddy, he was supposed to watch me. That was our army, okay?
Reprimanded you.
They reprimanded me. Oh. So I went, so that's what they told me that, I said, well, he looks suspicious. That's how we got the attention. Otherwise we probably still sitting there at lighthouse. Then from the Navy there, I went in a camp, got some more training, and pretty soon we got some ships already. The first ships that we had really was a ship that we brought in illegal immigrants on the ship. It was one time icebreaker, a river icebreaker by the military. This was the name of the ship is Elat. This was our first ship that I served on, okay? And this is the ship, first thing I served on, and what the train we had a regular anti-aircraft gun from our regular field. This was our gun, and that's how we were training on the Navy. Then I was assigned to take. I think I was assigned to take a course of radar. I was supposed to be a radar man. But wouldn't you know, then I was assigned to another ship. The name of the ship was a corvette, but the name of the ship was Haganah. And after this ship that I was assigned to take a course to be a radar man. So in this camp, I said, all of a sudden, we're in the camp, when the course didn't start yet, Oh, I have to say before, wait up this before I have to say the thing now. This before. Then I was assigned in Har Carmel and Haifa, where the Navy headquarters was, Santa Maria. Have you been to Haifa? Never been in Israel? Oh. Santa Maria. Remember I pointed you out. Remember that on the Carmel, on the very point there. This was the Navy headquarters, and I was assigned there too to be a guard. I was also in military police also in the Navy. I have to tell this story too for you guys. Something you get a kick out of it. So I was there. So one time, my sister sent me some money from America with a lot of apology. I bought myself a camera, and I was taking pictures. So I gave my buddy the camera. One of those cameras with accordion. Remember this thing?
Oh yeah, sure.
So I was standing in front of the headquarters and taking a picture, innocent picture. Wouldn't you know? An officer comes over and he grabs the camera away from me, puts me into the headquarters, investigates me, open up the camera, turned that he told him I'm a spy. Yeah, really. I was innocent, taking a picture, soldiers to send away to my sisters in America. He quick took away the camera from me, but I got the camera back, but it took out the film. This is the experience. And one night also I had guard in this part of headquarters. The Egyptian came to bomb Haifa. So I was shooting with a rifle at the police. And one time they came too. What was I going to say about the... Oh yeah. While I was also in Haifa, this is... I had already a Navy uniform. I was one of the first group of people that got Navy uniforms. Now, our first Navy uniforms, the pants were brand new American uniforms, but the top was used American uniforms. Tops were used, the hats were used, but the pants only were brand new. This is, we walked around, you people were so proud to see Jewish, we looked like an American. You see the picture, that like a, you saw my Navy picture. Oh, please show you. So I'm not telling stories, that's the truth. I have a picture to show you.
No, we want to see all the pictures.
Yeah, no, you saw, yeah, they saw that. So anyhow, so one day I was in military police, Navy military police. So one day I had guards at the port, Haifa port. All of a sudden, I see guys chasing somebody, loafing from the barge. So I the only one that had a gun, a rifle. Okay? Someone chasing, yeah. So I'll say this, a whole bunch of guys chasing a guy. As it turned out to be a Schwarzer, a black guy, a sailor came in on barge. So I shut the air, and I stopped everybody coming. They were going to beat this guy, that's the Schwarzer, beat him up there. So I really saved that guy. So anyhow, going back to Santa Tilly, so later on, where was I now? Yeah, and we're in the ship. Yeah, okay, so I was assigned to take a course to be a radar man.
Wasn't there a time you had to pull guard for, you had to watch the line and you got angry and yes?
Oh yeah, this is later also.
Okay.
Was it? No, it's before. No, this is before. This is before Taki. I almost got killed myself with the Tommy gun. This was before. We were this in a real before Haifa yet. We were in Caesarea, Caesarea, on an Arab farm. Arab, they ran away, they all ran away. So this was, we had our camp. I wasn't the commander at that time, I was a Marine. And so this was our camp, but we slept in tents. We didn't sleep within the Arabs. So one evening, the camp, the guys were going to go out to the, we weren't far from a Jewish community to go to a movie. So a few people had to remain on guard. So in the evening, when we pulled down the flag, we lined up there, and I was one, we didn't have the gun the whole day. In the evening, we had the gun, we went in the room there, we got issued guns, and I had a Tommy gun. At that time, we had one of the round
Canisters.
Yeah, canisters. So we lined up, pulled down the flag, do all the things. And then I got so angry that, I had to be the one to be left at the guard. They couldn't go to the movie. So I take this gun and I hit it on the thing, whatever word I said. And that's it. And I put it on my shoulder and we marched away. The guy behind me, he said, Moshe, your gun is loaded. I was lucky that I hit it so hard, that the whole spring went down. You see, it had it just for this much, whole bullet with 20 bullets would go right through my head.
Jeez.
So when I saw the thing, I took that gun off and I saw it. Then at the time I had to release. I went in the farm, in the Arab farm. I saw some dog and I just emptied the whole machine gun. Yeah. And also in Haifa, when we took over Haifa, the port Haifa, walked around, the guys, there was a lot of Arabs. You see, the Arabs in Haifa lived on the ground level, on the city, in the city, and the Jewish people lived in the Carmel. I think you should get a kick out of it too someday. No, really, the Arabs lived in the city, the Jewish people lived on the Carmel. So the Arabs knew that the Jews were very smart, and they knew about the atom bomb already. So they threw down, so this Haifa city is built on stairs. You mean, built on stairs. And the Jewish people on top, all the Arabs were on the bottom. So they were rolling down barrels with a dynamite. So they thought they had the atom bomb to come down. So all the Arabs, literally, they ran away. That's the tactic they use, Haifa. They roll down there from the sheriff and they explode it. So going back to the seminar, I mean the course of radar, and we were waiting. Meanwhile, I lost my clothes. My clothes got were transferred one thing. My kit, the bag. What do you call it? Military kit bag. No, the duffel bag. The duffel bag. The duffel bag. No, duffel bag got lost. I lost my clothes. I was waiting to go take the seminar. Meanwhile, out of nowhere, we're staying in line to go eat lunch. All of a sudden, on the loudspeaker, they're announcing, Moshe Mandelbaum, please come into the police, into the camp office. I come in there, so I go in there. All of a sudden, look around. Uncle David is sitting in the corner there with a leather coat with boots there. He found me. I didn't know that Mandel came to Israel.
Oh my God.
So first I went to Haifa with a picture of me, looking for me. I did not know that he's in town. So he happened to go into a place and he showed my picture and he happened to run into a guy. Oh, Moshe, sure, he said, I happened to serve with this guy on a ship. The guy, the store guy, oh, Moshe, sure, it's a gun, and he told me where I was. So he hitchhiked. He wasn't Haifa in a sort of a Ma'abara, DP camp sort of in Israel, transit camp. With the two children, 2.5 years old, and Penny was only 6 months old. So he found me. So I went there at lunch, and I went in. I was asked to go take furlough. To go out. They didn't let me. I jumped the fence and I left. Okay. Yeah. I went with him to Haifa, to Tel Aviv, and then I came back. And meanwhile, it did not materialize. I did not take the course, and I was discharged. And I went back to my kibbutz, because the group, remember the first 15 people that in 1948 they left, some went to form a kibbutz, and the kibbutz that we formed was an empty, abandoned British military camp they took the roofs off the son of a gun. They left the building, but they took the roofs off the British, and they gave us this camp, the government, and they formed the camp. Meanwhile, I went there and I joined them doing we were supposed to be fishermen, north of Nahariya.
But you weren't punished for
No,
walking out.
I jumped the thing. So, it was not that organized as it is now, but I jumped the thing and I ran away. But I came back and I was discharged. I wasn't discharged because I ran away, but I was discharged at that time. Kind of the war was over. And I was discharged to the kibbutz. So I went to the kibbutz and I asked them to give me time off so I can go help my sister.
Where were they?
They were in Yaffa already. They were living in Yaffa, in Jabalia, They didn't want to give me. They didn't want to let me go. I said, "This is the case. I'm leaving the kibbutz." So there was my sister. Even at that time, was more important than ideology. So I left the kibbutz, and I went to live with Mandel. And they got allocated, a roof, on top of the roof was a little room. That's all they got. It was an Arab house, but the Arab ran away. But right on the ocean. And there I stayed, and I went to work right away. I went to work construction, took a course in rough carpentry, the forms, make the forms, and I earned very good money. Right away, I earned a lot more money than Uncle David. But every penny I gave away to Mandel. Okay? But Mandel and David, and they had 3 children. Sherry and Joni were 2.5 years old. And Penny was only 6 months old. And they couldn't adjust, the typical wandering Jew. Didn't have the patience. So they were 10 months there. And all of a sudden, there were some people, machas, organizing papers, something like that, to go back to Germany. And they didn't have no money. and I was earning good money at that time. So they had a beautiful bracelet, gold bracelet. And I went to my friends that were also in camp together, asked them, to lend me money so I can give to my sister Mandel so they'd have to go back to Germany, when I gave them this bracelet as a security, I said, no, don't worry, Moishalan, you can have it. So I borrowed the money, I gave it to him, and the bracelet back, but subsequently I paid back the money. And they, Mandel and Dubik, went through hell and high water, went back to, through Italy, went back to Germany. Okay? And here I was left alone in Israel, not in kibbutz already, living in Yafo by myself. Again, I moved in with somebody else. Ghetto, which lives in Los Angeles now, was also in concentration camp with us. And working construction, earned good money. I was earning good money, living right away. I was a young kid. I had a helper. When he was 50 years old, he was my helper. Really. I learned everything. Then I always wanted to go in the trucking business. So I wasn't driving, but a buddy of mine, the guy went in kibbutz, he learned how to drive a truck in the army. So as when we were discharged, we were going to go in the trucking business. I told my sisters in America, they can find the money on the street. So I asked them to send me some money, to go buy. We're going to buy a truck. They did send me. And simultaneously, there were some people, what they call them machas, so arranging papers. So at that time already, I was working to come and join my sisters in the United States. But simultaneously, also both times, I was working and I was planning to go in the business. And yeah, always on my own, young man, no help. And we were going to go in the trucking business. And we're already bidding on a Canadian Ford at that time, a stub-nose Ford, a dump truck. It was a dump truck with a mechanical hand. And for $500, we were going to buy that truck at that time. This was in 1951. In 1951. But simultaneously, we heard some paper that we can make some papers so I can come to the United States. But we'll find a machal, a travel agency, that I had to go to Canada first. And we needed $400 in order to get the papers. So I sent my sisters here at that time. Riva and Edda and Anne lived here. Mandel was still in Germany. So we wrote to them, I sent them my address. They got the $400. Little did I know they had to go borrow the money. They got the $400. They sent it to Canada. And supposedly, someday from the organization, I got the papers. I got a passport, an Israeli passport, and I traveled to France, Paris, and from there, supposedly, we're supposed to go to Canada, and from Canada, we thought we can come to the United States. We couldn't come directly to the United States, right? And in addition, they also sent me $100 spending money. So you were legal to take out money from Israel. So people we knew from concentration camps, the guy that was making suitcases, he sewed in this. Uncle Sam sent me a pair of shoes, put the $100 in the heel. When he wrote in the letter that his left foot hurts him, he says that the left shoe is tight. I should know where the left or the right. Should know where the money was. So I took it out. Geniuses. Yeah. You don't. I mean, can you comprehend this thing? Is it comprehensible? Impossible, right? Smugglers, $100. So I took the $100 and I put it in my suitcase again. When I came to, so finally we got the papers. I quit everything, forgot about the trucking business. I had a good job. I was working, earning good money. And we're going to America. We're going to Canada. by ship with another fellow also. So I come in the port to Haifa. My buddy, that we were in the Navy together, he sees me leave. He takes me in, and, you know, he took him and they undressed me. They what do you call it?
Strip search.
Frisked me, right?
Yeah,
They thought I was smuggling money. I was, you know,
You were?
the guy, huh?
you were.
You understand? My buddy, it was a buddy. He was a policeman in the port.
Is he?
I have to tell you the story. Speaking of the port, I remember now. This you want to hear it. I'm sure you heard it many times before. While I was in the Navy, our ship was quarantined, so we took it outside the port, and we came in with lunches into the port. You know, and we had a furlough. At the same time, a ship came in with newcomers, from abroad. We were always hoping that, oh, maybe it's my sister Marcia, seeing somebody we know. And I knew everybody in the Haifa port there. So they closed off the, you know, blocked off the area. And everybody was known. I didn't have no problem seeing because most of the policemen knew me because one time I was there also. Well, my buddy from the ship wanted to go in there and then start wrestling with him. So I went to free my buddy up. And a policeman got to me and he tried to wrestle me. And he was older than I am. And I tried to free myself. And as I free myself, I hit the guy in the mouth. I didn't go and intentionally hit him, but he tried to restrain me. Not cop, you know, restrain me. I freed myself and I hit the guy in the mouth and he started bleeding. You know, and policemen see the thing. That, meanwhile, the other guy had no problem. They take me and they throw me. This was before a holiday. They throw me in the police station. There was another guy in the cell with me. They took that guy out from the cell and they left me alone in the cell. Pretty soon, two servants walked into the cell with a broom and started beating me up. They're going to kill me. Beat the hell out of me. I was black and blue. I didn't know at the time. And I screamed, well, I thought they were going to kill me. They were angry, you know. That's what the policemen do, even Jewish policemen. So later on, they take me out. They said, okay, we don't want a Jewish soldier to be on a holiday thing, you know, let you sign the papers here that you're going to, after you come back from Pearl, you're going to report. I did. And this is another story too, what I went through later on. And I went home. I went that time back to Mandel to visit, you know, to visit my sister Mandel. I come there, got undressed. I was black and blue. Absolutely black and blue. You know, worse than the Germans beat me up. Yeah, where was I with the...
On the way to Canada.
The money in the suitcase.
You were going to Canada and you were strip
Oh yeah, right. So anyhow, obviously couldn't find nothing. We come to Paris. No place to go. The whole thing I had $100, okay? No place to go. We slept in staircases. And we find somebody out here and then we ended up in a mountain Paris.
Who were you with?
Another guy there was also Jakob from DP camp, you know.
Your uncle.
No, Jakob Friedman doesn't make the difference to you guys. So, as it turned out, so we went to the Canadian consular with the visa supposedly that we have was a bogus paper.
Oh, so they paid $400.
They paid
for nothing.
$400 at that time. $400 in 1952. 52 was March 52. March 10, 52. I left Israel. $400. I probably sent in 51. You're right, but like it was a bogus papers. It was phony papers. Okay, and we couldn't go to Canada. So, what do? Now here in Paris, no place to live, no place to go. We sleep in the attic, we sleep in staircases. You know. Walk the streets. So we went to the Austrian consular. We told them that we want to go visit the cemetery of our parents. So they gave us a pass to go through from. In order to go to Austria, you go from Paris, you have to go through Germany. You had to go to the border. So finally we got this thing, took a train with the intention of, at that time we knew that Mandel was living in Germany. We took this train, bought a ticket to go to Austria legally. So we stopped at the border, we showed a passport, we're going to Austria. When the train stopped in Munich, we forgot the address. We stopped off in Munich. I think we took a car or bus, we went over to Fernwald, where Auntie Mandel and Uncle David already lived there. And we stayed there in Munich, in Fernwald, in the DP camp, from April of 1952 till February 1st, 1955. In February of next month will be 40 years I'm in this country. So I was there for 3 years, for 2 years, right? 52, 53, 54. 53, 54, 2 years. Went to school, the art school, and believe it or not, in a relatively short time I had my own business. Yes. I was going to school, I wanted to be a Schlossermechaniker, a tool maker, filing there. Then there was a guy there who worked 4 years, lamp, and we used, first I started working for the guys, stretching lamps, cutting. And before you know it, within a month or two, maybe 3, I was my own boss. I went to buy 2 machines, and I went in business for myself.
So you were free?
Making the forms there, okay? And I had girls and people working for me. That's right. Meanwhile, we were working coming to the United States. So my sisters worked here, and I think, and finally they sent me some papers legally, to come to the United States. So on February 2nd, 1955, I arrived in New York. I came by plane through Finland, by plane, TWA. We came from Munich to New York. New York, we spent only one evening. And I remember we went to visit somebody, we had an address to go visit father's sister. We went to visit. So they asked us, I remember the guy asked us, "You're leaving tonight?" I didn't know what he was talking, so we shook their hand, did the word English. The next morning, we took the train. Friedman remained there in New York. Took a train, the Hyas took over, and they gave me a label, and put a name here. And they put me on the train, and somebody in Chicago was my luck. I go in then, because I didn't know, obviously, a word of English. So they gave me a menu, and I looked at the menu, and I point, I want this, Wouldn't you know?
Spaghetti.
Tomatoes.
Yeah.
I didn't eat, for 24 hours, I didn't eat nothing.
No, tomatoes.
Tomatoes.
Funny. That's funny.
So anyhow, I came to Chicago. Somebody else was waiting for me also, and they took the little boy by the hand. Well, I was 25 years old already. They put me on the train to Minneapolis. I came to Minneapolis, to Western Union. The train was it's not there no more, and empty. And Etta, I think, and Pearl.
Yeah.
Pearl was waiting by the she met her, but she burned her leg, then she but and here this Marshall, and Marshall walks out, and that's how I came to here.
And they hadn't seen you in.
They haven't seen me since 9 years.
Wow.
Oh, jeez.
I was separate from 1946 to 1955. They haven't seen me. I went away as a little boy, a 15-year-old boy, and I came back. I was 25 years old already, close. And I came to your house because you were not born yet. Pam was only 3 months old, 6 months old, and I remember going to your house there where you lived, in the small bedroom there, and your mother was sitting feeding Pam. Remember, just like now, exactly the way it was. And I came here, and one day I took a walk downtown. My sister's panicked. They called police. The little boy is lost. Send out police, looked after me. Because I was working as a waitress on Hennepin there in one of the restaurants, and I went to visit her. And they called her, and the little brother got lost. I was all over the world. I found my way and took buses. I went to visit.
Where'd you live?
Huh?
Where were you living?
I moved in with Auntie Ann, Hanka. She lived on 1235 Knox Avenue. She lived as a tenant, as a double bungalow. No, double, it's up and down, yeah. We lived on this upper floor. In a relatively short time, I really learned, I came to the United States, didn't speak a word of English. Within 6 months, I spoke English. Yeah. And how far shall we go? Oh, it's a lot more. Just.
No, and how did you meet Auntie Roberta?
Oh, no, wait, I mean, it's a lot more. Just a relatively short time.
Good. Keep going.
A relative short time later. So anyhow, I lived at Auntie Ann's house. We shared a room with Larry. On a porch, Larry was at that time 8 years old, I think. And at first, my very first job, Uncle Ben arranged for me. I went to work as a maintenance guy for Nadich Company. And at that time, they were in process of moving from one building to another, to the Wyman building on the 7th floor. Now remember the guy's name is Wyman from the club. So the fellow, the owner liked me a lot, because I was so neat, working, safe thing, He said, yeah, so those American boys that throw things away, that waste things, And to us, we didn't throw things away. We had saved everything, boards, take out the nails, throw it away. And I was getting 85 cents an hour. In 1955, March, So I went to the guy and asked him for a raise. He got angry at me. As much as he liked me, he got angry at me. So he said, okay, he said, you know what? And he had 2 sons, Nadiches, the Sanford. And they all liked me really a lot, Because, I was a good worker. And they gave me, he said, okay, give me a raise for a nickel within a room. I wasn't happy with it. So I went to the Jewish Family Service, and Mr. Nudell found me a job. How did they find me a job? Probably looked in the paper, there were some openings. And evidently, Dennison Company, they were making aluminum windows, and they had an opening. So he gave me a letter of reference there, and I went there, and I already got along with English, believe it or not. So I came there, and they hired me immediately. Mind you, they were paying me 90 cents, was going to give me a raise. I immediately got $1.60 an hour.
Boy.
Wow.
Yes. So there I was working there, was getting $1.60 an hour. Now we're going to jump to. So while I was working there, Edda lived on Irving North in a duplex that belonged to the Saskins. The Saskins lived upstairs. Next to Edda, Roberta, your mother, sister, lived with her husband and a little girl, Barbara. I was introduced through Edda and Geraldine through your mother to your mother.
Well, he did fix everybody. I think.
Yeah.
Yes, she did.
Right. You think your father told you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then I called up Roberta, and I already, my English was pretty good already. You know, a matter of fact, earlier,
How long have you been in the United States?
5-6 months. That's all. Because remember now, in August of 86, we were married. We got engaged in March of 56. So when I came here in February, so after about 6 months, you know, I think in December was the first time we went out on a date. You know. So,
So
Mom.
Auntie Etta introduced you.
Auntie had introduced you, and I took the liberty, and I called her up, you know, and I went to their house and picked up your mother. They lived on Washburn.
Did you meet Mr. and Mrs. Fox the first night?
Yes, yes. Mr. Fox, you know, made a very beautiful impression on me. He was a nice young man. Well, at that time, he was only 49 years old, but I thought he was a really old man. You know, nice, distinguished hair, beautiful home. You know, but and we went out.
Your first date was?
Huh?
What was your first date?
First date? I think we went to that restaurant there. Then we went on Hennepin Avenue.
Just went in the other room.
Yeah, you missed her.
Anyhow, in a relatively short time, bang, 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 you know, in March, in March, no, in a relatively short time, in March, we were engaged. In our engagement, we were engaged,
Now let's change this
February 18th.
to the bang bang.
February 18th?
First one.
Engaged?
No, I don't, I already had, I have to say this thing. Before I had my driver's license,
And who
I had a car. I bought a 51 Chevy with $600 for the money that I got from Germany. For very good, my home. I bought a car, the 51 Chevy, a green car, and I drove the car without having a driver's license.
Who taught you how to drive?
Uncle Vitek.
Okay.
Yeah, that's for the record. Vitek taught me how to drive on an old Nash.
They did that everybody.
Yeah, with shift
On the tree or on the floor?
on 3.
3 on the tree.
That's what they call it? Yeah. So in February, February 18, so I was on the way. I went to buy the ring with Vitek at Burmy. At that time, with the IDSs now, but there was another building.
Went to see Michael.
Well, you running out of tape.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if the details is that important, those things.
Oh, it's fine. No, those are
Yeah.
fun things. Those are things we'll move.
Anyhow,
forever.
yeah, the grandchildren are gonna laugh at you, those things. Yeah,
I love it.
yeah. So, I took mother was going. I was taking mother at that time. They took her to a shower. So just before she went into the shower, I presented her with the ring, and I left her, and she went to the shower.
Here, they dropped her off.
Okay,
Oh, that's so funny.
and I left.
Funny story.
Okay. And they call her the mother, you know, that time we were sitting
She thought you were
inside.
coming back for her.
Shut. And they're looking all over for me.
Hoo-ha.
And within a relatively short time, this was on February 18, you say? And on August 26, we were married in Beth El Synagogues on Queen Avenue. Penn Avenue. The old synagogue.
And in Plymouth.
And we were married by 2 rabbis, Rabbi Aronson and Rabbi Levine. And we have movies to prove.
Hopefully the movie's in squeak.
And, yeah. And,
And who from your family was at your wedding?
I had a dream or a wish, just like the wish was what's going to be tomorrow, that I always wanted to have the whole family, all my sisters at my wedding. I was never at none of my sisters' wedding. I had a wish fulfilled that all 4 of my sisters were at our wedding. My sister Mandel came 3 days before our wedding through the help at that time of blessed memory, and it should be said blessed memory, Hubert H. Humphrey. At that time he was senator of the state of Minnesota. Yeah, they were all at our wedding.
Mayor.
Excuse me?
Mayor, maybe.
Mayor.
A senator yet?
How come
God.
mayor is
In what
help?
year?
How could a
55, of course he was senator.
Yeah, a mayor
Already at
couldn't help.
55 he was senator?
Mayor
Of course.
mayor couldn't have done anything.
Politics lives to me, I know. Yeah, it's just statistics. Yeah. So we got married, and we stayed there for a couple of days. So tell them where we're on honeymoon at what hotel?
Yeah, we love it.
Sure.
Where did you go on your honeymoon?
We went up. Okay, on the first night, we stayed in a motel on the way to Robbinsdale someplace on Highway 52. We rented one room. The next morning we came back, a beautiful hotel. Ah, don't laugh. So next morning we came back, we had breakfast, and my gracious father-in-law made Takame Sobi, rest in peace. He had a 55 Oldsmobile. He let us use his 55 Oldsmobile, and we went on a honeymoon to California. And we peeled the tires off the wheels because we went through the desert, you know, and we drive 110 miles an hour. Don't you do it now?
Uncle Vita taught him how to drive.
Yeah. And my final question, Uncle Mark,
Yes.
what would you like to tell your children and grandchildren?
But what I'd like to tell my children and grandchildren, that I consider myself extremely fortunate and lucky and blessed. I didn't have nothing to do with it, the fact that I survived, but it was meant to be, that I should survive along with my 4 sisters such atrocities that you could never imagine, and I hope you should never have to experience. So I can sit here and tell you that, and that you're going to share this memory for the day, all your day of your life. And also the grandchildren take the thing very serious. It might think some funny at times, but it's really, you're fortunate to have living, audible history. Yes, you're looking at a 65-year-old man, but you have to visualize, imagine a 9, 10, 12, 15-year-old child. They went through hell and high water, and I consider myself very normal and certainly lucky to have you all. I'll have to film something. It's enough, huh? Whew. One more thing. I have to add this thing. I'm going to add it tomorrow too. I have to get an awful lot of credit to your mother, your grandmother, your mother-in-law. If it wouldn't be for her, I couldn't do or accomplish none of those things that I have accomplished. She gave me freedom to do the things that's important to me, and obviously she did it because she loves me, and I love her just the same. She might not believe me, but it's true. We are very fortunate. And as you will hear and know, that America was very good to me, and respect this country and love this country, and I love this country greatly.
You said talking about love, man.